Here's what the Financial Post tells us. Toronto home prices fell for a fourth straight month as buyers were squeezed by interest rates stuck at multi-decade highs. The benchmark price for homes in Canada's largest city fell 1.7% in November, and that makes it, since July, a drop of 4.8%. With 30 years of experience in Toronto and the GTA real estate market, Frank Leo and Associates, real estate agent. Good morning.
Good morning, Jerry. How are you today?
I'm well. For the one person who will complain and doesn't get it, I do your ads on this radio station, so I'll get that, proviso out of the way. In fact, that's coming up right after you're done here, Frank.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. So how do you react, first off the top here, to this headline?
Well, I don't think it's anything that the average person hasn't felt. I mean, we don't have an article to know that we're being squeezed everywhere we go. Everything's more expensive.
Okay, but it's a decline in housing prices over 4 months. If I had seen a story that housing prices last month were down 1.7%, I probably wouldn't have called you. I would have said, well, let's see what happens next month, because anything can happen. But 4 months is a kind of a trend.
It is, and I talk to a lot of wonderful families out there, and the pain is real. It's hitting them from all angles, and interest rates are probably the cause of a big portion of it. Everything has gone up, and so there's less disposable income, and the pay has not compensated, the average person enough to cover those increases.
All right, but there are going to be people who would look at this and think, well, this is a good thing, because housing prices were exploding year to year in cost here in the city and in the GTA, generally speaking. So sometimes some people's bad news is somebody else's good news, I guess.
There's going to be opportunities for some people, but I mean, look, if you're, compassionate to the average person, we're seeing them hurt, and what's happening is actually going to be potentially spiraling, because if we have less disposable income, and now we're heading into the holidays, we're not going to be able to buy as many gifts for family members, and the people that make that merchandise won't be working, and the people who sell it won't be working, and so this could be potentially even worse if we, go through the whole economic, process.
All right, but again, worse is relative too, because I might look at this and think, well, maybe I'll hang in for a couple of months and then the housing prices will go down even more, and then I can afford to buy, and that's when I'll call Frank.
Well, you can always call me. I'm always here for everyone, but the problem is interest rates have caused the affordability factor to decrease. So the amount of money that the average person can borrow has drastically decreased, and their ability to purchase at a higher price has gone down as well. So unless interest rates change, their purchasing power has eroded as well.
Okay, so it appears to be good news for buyers if the housing prices are going down, but you're not going to get the cheaper mortgage.
That's right. You don't just buy a house. You also buy the money. You have to get that money, and you have to pay that money, and that money has gone up in cost.
Okay, so what are you like? What if I wanted to sell a house right now? What would you tell me? Would you say wait a bit?
Well, if we go with the premise that everything will stay, the same way it is and continue on in the same process, the cost of everything has gone up, and people have less disposable income. And if that continues, that means that things should continue to go down. So if you want to get more money and things are going down, sell sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, the headline here, I'm talking to real estate agent Frank Leo and Associates, and the headline in the Financial Post is Toronto home prices fall for the fourth month in a row. You have the price down, but the interest up, and so the payments aren't necessarily better. How much are you seeing, Frank, of this phenomenon, we're told, where people suddenly find themselves with the interest rates the way they are right now, literally unable to afford to stay in their house, and that's why they're selling it?
We're hearing that more and more, Jerry, and it really is very, unhappy to hear those things, because families are being forced to make decisions that they have to make a move because it's getting to be out of hand, and people were already stretched out when they bought these properties because they maxed out their mortgages when they purchased originally. So any increases is going to be a real tough weight to carry.
Okay, there is a video, kind of a mini documentary that Pierre Poilievre put out, and he's attacking the federal government, actually, and that's his job. He's the official opposition, and of course, he wants to win in the next election. But he's laying the high cost of housing in cities like Toronto on governments, on too much red tape, on all kinds of things, the interest rates, all kinds of things. He's blaming government more even, and supply and demand. Is he generally correct?
Well, government's a big part of everything. I mean, the government's in power. They have the ability to change policies and control inputs and outputs. I mean, one of the things that I heard earlier today on your station, which is a great station, of course, talking about how to reduce grocery costs, right? And how we can tax these grocers. Well, let's talk about tax. We're taxed everywhere. Isn't there a carbon tax going on there? Aren't we, sales tax and gas tax and alcohol tax? We're taxed everywhere. Income tax. I mean, the government has a lot of power to put more money in our pockets or take it out. I mean, we have to look at the big picture. So, yes, government has a big impact on housing, the ability to build housing, the cost of building it through the taxes and development charges. The government has all the power. I mean, when you have a majority, and essentially the government is in cahoots or agreed with the NDP to do whatever they want.
Okay, so the other thing that I read, though, Frank, is that the price of housing dropped by 4.8%, I think, over 4 months, 1.7% last month, and it's cumulatively getting close to 5% in housing drops. But that's the price. But that actually houses are selling.
Yeah, houses will always sell because the environment is cold and we need to live somewhere. So we have to find a way to get into homes. So, yes, we have sold many homes, and the question is at what price and what terms. That's it. But homes will continue to sell because we need them. It's not an option.
Well, yeah, but you've also, at some point, people say, I can't afford this. And, here's the thing I see all the time when I read an article about this. They'll talk about the average house in Vancouver costs this. In Montreal, it costs this. In Toronto, it costs this. But the average is the average. What would the low end be in Toronto for a house you'd be willing to live in?
Well, I think what you said there, Jerry, is key with the low end. Our standards of living today are much different than they were in the 50s. I mean, I remember, I saw homes that were built in that era with a 2-bedroom, and I find out that families of 6 and 8 people lived in those homes. How did they do that? Because, we had different acceptable standards of living. And now we have these big homes, and 2 people live in them, and that's wonderful if you can afford it. And if you can't, then you have to change what you expect as a living standard. Many people are living in a room, and renting it out. You do what you have to. It's not what we want to see, but we're driven to affordability, and that's what the issue is today, and that's the conversation that we're having.
Do you think the largest part of the drop in housing prices in Toronto is directly the interest rates?
The interest rates moving up so quickly is a definite cause of it all, because if it was more of a staggered or a slower pace of increase, it would have been easily or much more easily absorbable. This is not something that we can do. The actual Bank of Canada rate from 0.25 to 5% is a 2,000% increase in a year and a half.
People never look at it that way. I mean, when you put it that way, it makes your head shake.
Yeah. Well, there's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. So you have to be careful.
Well, yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. Housing prices might be down 4.8% or something like that, but that's 4.8% from, let's face it, it's real expensive to live in Toronto.
Even the people that have their homes and have to refinance and whatever, for me, the real travesty here is families are hurting. They're going to have not such a good Christmas, and I hear it every day. We're here to help as many people as we can, but the phones are ringing off the hook with people having issues with these higher interest rates and these higher costs, and we want to help as many people as possible. And we care about these families, and hopefully they can weather through the storm, and it gets better soon. All
right. Frank Leo of Frank Leo & Associates, real estate agent with 30 years of Toronto and GTA real estate experience. I said your ad would be coming up next, but you know what, Frank, I'm going to talk about this fundraiser that you're doing because I think it's terrific.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's a great cause. Thank you very much, Jerry. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks very much.
Have a great day.
You too.